time for our SEC Spring Football Focus. One of the new members of the Southeastern Conference wrapped up spring practice this past weekend. To give us some perspective on how that went for the Missouri Tigers, we bring in Gabe DeArmond from PowerMizzou.com. Gabe, it's Vince and Mike Griffith. Good morning. How you doing, Gabe?
Not bad. How are you guys doing?
We're good, Gabe. I know going in, we talked to you about some of the injuries that Mizzou had going into spring practice, and then James Franklin went down as well. Just how significant was it to not have a number of the key components of this Missouri team available in spring practice?
Well, I mean, it was big from the standpoint of last weekend they had their spring game, and, I was telling people, you're not really seeing the team. I mean, they had 7 guys who were going to start who didn't participate in the spring game. Or, 6 guys who were going to start, and then Henry Josie, who we expect to miss all of next season. But, I mean, it's good from the perspective of, those guys, what you're getting. Elvis Fisher, Sheldon Richardson, James Franklin. These are guys that you know what you're going to get next year, or you have a pretty good idea. Whereas some of their backups, maybe it helps them be a little bit more ready in case they have to play at some point during the season, but I'm sure given the choice, Gary Pinkel would have rather had everybody go ahead and practice.
What have you seen from that quarterback position without James Franklin throughout spring camp? What was your thoughts on those quarterbacks?
Well, Corbin Bergstresser's got some tools, and he'll be the guy if for some reason Franklin's either not back or if he gets injured during the season. He redshirted last year, put up huge numbers as a senior at Lee Summit High School in Kansas City. But I think the easiest way to boil it down is this. I think if James Franklin's healthy, Missouri can talk about winning 8, maybe 9 football games, making some noise in the SEC East. If he's not, if for some reason, he doesn't recover quickly enough from the surgery or he has another injury or whatever, then I think Missouri's goal is simply to win enough games to make an 8th consecutive bowl game.
What's Corbin Bergstresser's style? Is he dual threat? Is he fit into the scheme, or is he a different type of quarterback?
Well, I think he does some of the same things as Franklin does. He's not as good a runner as Franklin is, but he is a guy who will get out and take on. I mean, there was one practice where, the quarterbacks aren't supposed to be hit or anything, and Bergstresser's on a keeper, and he just lowers his shoulder and runs right over Missouri's starting outside linebacker, Andrew Wilson, which is all well and good. You like to see it. At the same time, with the starting quarterback on the shelf, I'm sure Gary Pinkel didn't really like him doing that in the middle of a fairly meaningless April practice. But, I mean, he ran this same offense his senior year in high school. He threw for like 3,400 yards. Accounted for 40-some-odd total touchdowns, only had 6 or 7 interceptions. So he's got the tools. He's got a gun. He's got a bigger arm than Franklin does. But the questions I would have at this point are just, kind of catching up with the speed of reading defenses, the accuracy on every throw. And like I said, I mean, he's a guy that I think down the road could be a pretty nice quarterback, but I don't think he's quite ready yet to let's put our first season in the SEC in his hands.
Getting our SEC spring football focus, wrapping up Missouri, who had spring game this past weekend and wrapped up spring practice here on the new Sentinel Sports Page. Vince Ferrara along with Mike Griffith. Gabe, when we had you on to preview Mizzou's spring practice starting, you talked about that defensive line, and you mentioned Richardson and others that they did not have available on that D line, and they maybe had some progress to make going in as well. What came out of spring in terms of that defensive line that you can gauge?
Well, defensive end, they're in good shape. I mean, Brad Madison was out, but Michael Sam is going to be the other starter. Probably had a real good spring. Kid named Shane Ray, who redshirted last year. His dad played at Missouri back in the late 70s, and he might have been the best player on the field during most of spring practice. I mean, was constantly in the backfield. So they've got 5 defensive ends they feel pretty good about. Defensive tackle, Lucas Vincent, who should start alongside Richardson, played pretty well. And the big surprise, really, of spring ball was a kid named Matt Hoke, who came to Missouri a couple years ago as a tight end. He redshirted, moved to defensive end last year, and now is at defensive tackle. He's in line to be right now Missouri's third guy in the rotation. I'm not sure they have a 4th guy just yet, so that could be an issue. But Hoke, I think, set some people's minds at ease that they've at least got 3 guys they feel pretty good about And that's obviously a position where Missouri's going to have to be better in future years than they are right now. But I think with Hoke's emergence, at least they feel a little bit better about things than they did a couple months ago.
Talking to Gabe DeArmond from PowerMizzou.com, covers the Missouri Tigers on a daily basis. Outside of the quarterback position, because we know how talented and important James Franklin is, where would you put the strengths and the weaknesses of this Missouri football team?
I think they're very good at linebacker. Xavier Gooden, Andrew Wilson, and Will Ebner have all been starters in the past. Those are going to be the starting guys. Donovan Bonner is the fourth linebacker. He had a very good spring. He's a guy that a lot of people have compared physically to Sean Weatherspoon, who obviously was an All-American at Missouri and now plays for the Falcons. And even Darvin Ruiz, a kid out of Florida, had a real good spring, had 8 or 9 tackles in the spring game. So I think they're good there. Wide receiver, to me, is the most interesting position because I think they have a lot of talent, but very little of it is all that proven. I mean, TJ Moe is one of the better, more dependable guys over the middle. He made 90-some-odd catches 2 seasons ago. They really like him. He's going to be good. LaDainian Washington and Marcus Lucas played some last year. Lucas had like 6 fourth-quarter or overtime touchdown catches. LaDainian Washington led the team in yards per reception. So they feel good about what those guys can do. They got some backups, young kids that haven't really seen the field yet. Jimmy Hunt, Bud Sasser, John McGaffey, Dorial Green-Beckham's coming in the summer. So it's the most interesting position to me in that, the fans who follow Missouri recruiting and have known who these kids are for 2 or 3 years are really excited. But we haven't really seen a lot of them do it on Saturdays just yet. So it'll be interesting to see if that potential, then turns into production.
Last thing with you, Gabe, was there anything else, any guys that stood out to you, caught your eye that you haven't mentioned already, that caught your eye in the spring or impressed coaches and fellow players and teammates? And also, did you learn anything overall about this Missouri team in the spring, even though there were some key guys missing?
Yeah, I think I always kind of warn people, not to take, if I could watch 15 practices and learn a ton, I would probably be coaching rather than doing what I'm doing. For example, last August, we watched 24 Missouri practices, and I don't think any of us ever mentioned Henry Josie. For that matter, the coaches didn't really mention Henry Josie. He came out of fall practice as the third tailback on the depth chart. And then the top 2 guys went down, and all of a sudden, Henry Josie led the Big 12 in rushing and only playing about 8 games. Mm-hmm. So, I always try not to weigh practices too heavily. The one thing I'd say, special teams, I have a question. They're breaking in a new snapper and a new holder, and the kicking game really struggled all spring. And kicking is the one thing you just can't simulate in practice. I mean, you can tell a kid it's a game-winning kick and have his teammates jumping up and down and all that, but it's just not the same as kicking a ball in front of 104,000 people on Saturday to win a game. Right. And then the offensive line, I actually think is maybe going to be better than some people think. They did lose 3 starters, but Elvis Fisher got a 6th year of eligibility, so they're bringing 3 starters back. They got a kid named Mitch Morse, who's a redshirt sophomore, I believe, who's going to start at center this year. And what that allows them to do is move last year's starting center Travis Ruth over to a guard, and I think that's his better position anyway. I thought he had some real ups and downs at center last season. So I think that's a unit that could be better than people think going into the SEC.
Gabe DeArmond covers the Missouri Tigers for PowerMizzou.com. You can follow him on Twitter. It's Gabe DeArmond, DeArmond, for more on the Missouri Tigers, and we'll continue to learn more about Mizzou as we get to the start of the season. Gabe, always great to talk to you. Really appreciate your insights, and have a great rest of the week.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, Gabe. That is Gabe DeArmond with our SEC Spring Football Focus.